TMJ is a term that maybe gets misused a lot as if it describes a very specific condition. Um, in fact, it's maybe a little more helpful to think of it in broader terms. TMJ, or TMD as we sometimes call it, temporomandibular joint disorder, really just means any kind of pain or dysfunction or problem in the area of this joint where the lower jaw and the skull intersect. So whether it's pain, waking up with pain, headaches that sort of emanate from that area, or some kind of clicking, locking, popping problem, the bite feeling off, these can all be variations of TMJ. That being said, one of the things I like to say in my practice is it's not a problem unless it's a problem. If it bothers you, if it hurts, if you feel like there's a need to do something, that you want to improve this, then you have a TMJ issue. If it merely clicks or is uncomfortable in a way that really doesn't bother you or impact your life, you may still wish to talk to your dentist about it, make sure it's nothing more significant that's going to get worse, but in many cases that's maybe a little imperfection that you can live with. When it's a real problem, when it's really interfering in your life in a way that you're motivated to do something about it, that's when it's a TMJ problem that you really want to talk to your dentist about, and if it's appropriate, be with a TMJ specialist. TMJ, the letters TMJ stands for temporomandibular joint. It's really just the joint where the skull and the lower jaw or the mandible connect. But what we commonly think of as TMJ is a disorder or a medical problem involving that joint, whether it involves the muscles, the bones, or the structure of the joint itself, the nerves perhaps, something involving the teeth or the jaw, or the bite. These are all different forms of what we might call TMJ. But effectively, if you have either pain or a functional problem where that jaw joint is just not working right, that seems to be locking or sticking or just not working smoothly, perhaps the right and left side are not working real well together, those could all be examples of what we think of as a TMJ disorder. And those are the kinds of things that you may wish to talk to your dentist about. If you're a patient that often has to ask the dentist or the hygienist to take a pause and give you a break because it's hard to keep your mouth open for that long, if you're having pain when you wake up or when you chew certain foods or talk extensively, those can all be TMJ indications. And so again, you may want to talk to your dentist, and when it's appropriate, they may wish to refer you to a TMJ specialist. TMJ of many varieties is a progressive condition. That is, many forms of TMJ will get worse, others will not. So it sort of depends what kind of TMJ it is. If it's a mechanical problem in the joint, it's more likely going to be progressive. That is, it is more likely to give you more trouble over time as the joint becomes more and more affected, unless something changes, unless you do something about it. If it's more of a muscle problem, it may be more transient. So it sort of depends where it started from and what the nature of the condition is. TMJ problems oftentimes will get better and worse over time, depending on what else is going on. To some extent, it may be stress related. It may be related to certain behaviors, how you're using your jaw. It may be related to other medical issues that are perhaps going on. If you're sick in some other way, if you're not getting enough sleep, if you're dealing with some other disorder or disease, that could definitely trigger a TMJ problem to become more of a problem for a while, and then it may again go into a sort of remission until things change again. So they can be variable, they can get better with very little intervention, and they certainly can get worse unless some sort of treatment is involved. This is one of the most common questions we get: do I need to treat a clicking jaw? The answer is not always. A clicking jaw, one that either audibly or you feel a sensation of clicking in the joint, uh, with opening and closing, usually with opening, it could be with opening and closing. Usually that indicates that something's out of place. Most specifically, there's a disc. It's sort of like a piece of leather, a fibrocartilage disc in the joint. And if that little disc slips out of place, so it's not sitting between the bones where it should be, but it's slipped typically forward a little bit so that the bone is pushing against it when you open and close. Again, mostly when you open, it will actually snap that little disc in and out of place, and that's the clicking that you can sometimes feel or even hear in the joint. If somebody comes up to me knowing that I'm somebody who treats TMJ problems, they come up to me at a party or something and say, my joint clicks, and take a listen to this and wants to demonstrate that, and they'll ask, well, do I need treatment for that? Do I need to be seen? I go to my phrase that I use so often, which is TMJ is not a problem unless it's a problem. If it's not impacting your life, if you're not uncomfortable about it, if it's not impacting you where you're having to change your diet, change the way you speak, in some way affecting your behavior negatively, if you're not having any of those problems and it's just an interesting phenomenon that your jaw clicks, it's probably not something that you really need to do anything about. I know there'll be some disagreement. Other TMJ specialists will be more assertive about that. My own approach is it's an imperfection. The disc is probably out of place. The joint's not working as perfectly as it could, but you've adapted fine. It's not interfering with your life. You're not having pain or problems associated with it. But the moment that you feel differently, that this is becoming a concern to you, that you're worried about it, or it's changing the way that you have to do things, it's impacting you in any way, then it's time to talk to your dentist and, if appropriate, to see a specialist about that clicking joint. If you're asking the question, why does my jaw hurt? Of course, there's a lot of different reasons. The jaw is a very complicated part of the body, and if you think about it, it's involved in so many different things. You're using your jaw, of course, to chew and to eat, to swallow. You're using it to speak, to communicate, and therefore to socialize. Your jaw is very much involved in breathing. It's involved in facial expression. It's involved in kissing. It's involved in holding things. So many elements of what the jaw does. And then, of course, there's things that your jaw does that don't really serve a purpose. If you're clenching or grinding your teeth or have other habits with your jaw, those things are not uncommon that we see in our patients. So why does it hurt? Well, oftentimes there's something out of place in the anatomy, the very complex anatomy, be it something involving bones, tissue, nerves, muscles. There are muscles that are strained or in some kind of tension. They're not working in their best alignment, and that may relate to your bite. How your teeth come together creates a very specific endpoint in how the jaw functions. And so if the muscles are in an uncomfortable posture when your teeth are together, or in any function of the teeth in the jaw, it may lead to some muscle pain. There may be a nerve issue where the nerves are simply telling your brain something that's not entirely true, that they're telling you that something hurts more than it really should. That may relate to things like migraine pathology or other medical issues that somebody may have. Maybe the nerves themselves are damaged because of some kind of dental or surgical procedure or injury. So there's a lot of reasons that your jaw may hurt. Certainly, if that's a pain that you've been living with and you're ready to do something about it, you should, and that's what we're here for. Talk to your medical doctor, talk to your dentist, and when it's appropriate, come to a TMJ specialist. We'd love the opportunity to help you out with pain. That's what we deal with more than anything else. And you shouldn't have to live with it. It's not normal. Pain is not a good thing. In this circumstance, it's something that you want to try to change and to improve on, and I hope we'll have the opportunity to help if that's a need that you have. often asked, why does my jaw click? Why do patients have that particular symptom, and what does that mean in terms of TMJ? The jaw is a very complicated structure. The way it opens and closes, it's not a simple hinge. The mandible, the jaw joint, the bone that goes to the jaw joint, actually slides right in and out of the joint socket. This is the only bone in the body that dislocates or comes out of its socket in normal movement. And there's an element to it called the disc. The disc is a piece of fibrocartilage. You can imagine a piece of leather. It's kind of that texture. A really tough little piece of tissue that sits between these bones, between the skull and the upper part of the mandible, called the condyle of the mandible. And that little disc slides back and forth in and out of the socket with the bone each time you open and close. Oftentimes that little disc will get out of place. It'll slip typically forward. And so instead of just moving with the bone in and out of the socket, if you can imagine that with what I'm showing you with my hands here, that disc slides into a more forward position, and as the bone starts to move out of the socket, it actually catches the edge, and you get that clicking, popping sensation. And that's a very typical concern that our patients have. It is an imperfection. Certainly it's not the way the joint is designed to work, but whether or not it needs treatment, well, that depends. It depends how much it's interfering. It depends if it's associated with pain, if it's causing you to have to change the way you do things or behave, be it your speech, your eating, or anything else. If you're nervous about it, you're concerned, you want to find out what's going on, or you want to address a problem with it, absolutely, that's worth following up with your dentist, and where it's appropriate, the dentist may recommend seeing a TMJ specialist for that clicking jaw problem. Many of our patients come to us with this question: why do I grind my teeth? Why does anybody grind their teeth? And oftentimes the answer they've been given, and you may have heard this as well, is stress. For years and years now we've been saying that stress is the reason people grind their teeth or clench their teeth. And I've always found that to be a rather unsatisfying answer. Certainly a lot of our patients live with stress, but certainly everybody lives with stress. It's a part of life. And I don't know that it really is a good enough answer, and the science more and more doesn't really back up the fact that stress and grinding or clenching the teeth is really a real clear-cut connection. So I don't really buy that as an adequate explanation. It's an area that I've studied quite a bit. I find it really interesting and really underappreciated. And what I found is if you really look at the hard basic science, looking at human and animal models coming out of anatomical studies and physiology studies, there's a great deal of information we know about muscles. And around the face and the jaw, there are a lot of muscles, a lot of small muscles, maybe more muscles in that area than just about any other part of the body, and all pulling and functioning in different ways. We know that muscles work well when they are aligned correctly, when they're doing their job in the best possible alignment, the best possible environment. When the muscles have to work in compromise, where they're working around a bend or a corner or pulling in a way that's not comfortable and right for them, and that may mean in the case of the jaw that the bite is in such a position that it strains the muscles or puts them into an awkward position, those muscles will start to build up little tensions and discomforts and weaknesses, imbalances between the right and left side. And all of that manifests with this constant need to find stability. So those muscles constantly looking for stability, working against each other and trying to get themselves comfortable and into a better position, that results in jaw movement, that results in behaviors like clenching or grinding the teeth. So that, I think, is really what the root of that problem is. Many of our patients will come to us. I've ground through my mouth guard again and again every year. I'm needing a new mouth guard because I keep grinding through it. How come, Dr. Goldberg, your mouth guard I never grind through. What is this thing made of? Well, it's not that it's made of anything special, but what we've done is we've dealt with the orthopedics of the jaw. We've positioned the bite of the jaw in a way that's proper for the muscles, where they're lined up right, and all of a sudden they can rest and relax finally, and you no longer have all this twitchy clenching and grinding type behavior. So that's really, I think, the great advantage of this level of TMJ care.